Hello classmates. For my informative speech, I have chosen Nikola Tesla versus Thomas Edison, and I would put top dollar that all of you have heard of Thomas Edison. Where I would like to know how many of you have heard of Nikola Tesla, my personal hero, and maybe my favorite historical figure of all time. So as you can see here, Tesla is the one who discovered alternate current. As you can imagine, alternate current flows alternately, whereas direct current, you guessed it, it flows directly. A prime example of direct current would be this mouse here. It has a battery in it with copper on the ends, and it supplies energy to this device directly. Now the advantage of alternate current is that it can flow over vast amounts of space without losing energy, where direct current can only travel a very small or minuscule amount. And that's why alternate current is used to power all of the United States via our power lines. Where if we were to use direct current to try to power every single city and nation, we would have to have a copper plant every mile, maybe even more than that. It would just be an insurmountable feat that could not be achieved. This brings us to the next unfortunate saga in our story. This is the saga where Edison began to kill animals. It was a smear campaign against alternate current. He was fearful alternate current was the better system than direct current, and he needed to find leverage, and his leverage was killing animals. Even poor Topsy the elephant. He killed a circus elephant. And what he did is he put copper shoes on this elephant, got two prongs, filled with alternate current, and zapped the elephant till it was dead. And I don't want to get into great detail. It is not pretty. It is not fun. It almost makes me sick to think about it. Now, if killing poor Topsy the elephant was bad, this itself is even worse. Thomas Edison helped conduct the first public execution via electric chair. It wasn't an idea or even in the realm of thinking until Thomas Edison proposed this. And he thought this would be the prime example to display the dangers of alternate current. And the tragedy in this event was the fact that they did not wet the sponge. Now when you do an execution via electric chair, you have to wet the sponge. Otherwise the current can't properly travel through the sponge to the brain and kill that person as humanely and instantaneously as possible. And they quite literally, for lack of a better term, cooked him like a hot dog. The AC showcase at Niagara Falls was another example of Tesla's brilliance or unique mind, an absolutely revolutionary person. And what made this feat so brilliant or so great is that he lit up Buffalo like a candle. Before this happened, no one had ever seen Tesla's prowess on display. And I can only imagine that day when he flipped the switch, the dams opened, the water flew through, it spun that turbine, it filled the generator with power, and all of Buffalo was provided with energy and light. It's like they took a step forward, an absolutely extraordinary step forward. And this would just be a brilliant thing to have seen. Mark Twain saw it, lots of other revolutionary people. We often forget that this happened in 1920. It just doesn't seem like it happened at that time because Tesla was just so far ahead of his time. And to compare and contrast Tesla and Edison, we've all heard the quote, "I have now found 10,000 ways not to make a light bulb." And, that's great. A lot of people draw inspiration from that quote. It's a quote of resiliency or perseverance. But what that quote says to me is that Edison was just a bull in a china shop. He just would run around, bang his head against the wall. He really wasn't a scientist. He was a businessman. And I'm impressed that Edison even figured out how to make a light bulb, because it wasn't really in his nature. It was more in his nature to figure out how to get money. Whereas Tesla never was drawn by money. That was never his motivation. And when Edison had an invention in mind, he would create it in his mind. He would think of the invention, he would put it all together, and voila, he would then go into reality and create it. That just goes to show the two differences in these people. The Wardenclyffe Tower was Nikola Tesla's most ambitious project, and probably the project in which he was the most passionate about personally. And he received this money from JP Morgan, $150,000, under the guise or the expectation that he would be building a telegram. It was not a telegram, but Tesla was able to justify this trick quite easily by saying, once JP Morgan sees the utility of my Tesla tower, he'll forgive me and we'll be able to provide something great to the world. The tower, you could quite literally put a light bulb in the ground and you could light it up. Electrons would be flying through the air wirelessly. You could have a tower on your car, electrons would come to it, your car would be powered, your boat, your cell phone. Wires would be a thing of the past, and paying for your energy bill would be a thing of the past. And when JP Morgan heard and saw this, his response was, where will we put the meter? In other words, how am I going to make money on this? And how are we going to know how much electricity each individual is consuming? Tesla's response was, we won't have to track it anymore. Energy will be free. Energy is God's gift to all of us. Well, big surprise, JP Morgan, being the money mogul, the richest man at the time, was not a fan of this idea. And was he not only a fan of his idea, he was also no longer a fan of Tesla. And he set forth to make sure that Tesla would never invent or do anything in his life to any measure or degree ever again. Now, this is the part of the story that personally brings me sorrow. It really touches me on an emotional level, the fact that Tesla didn't have any friends in his dying days. No one to talk to, no one to socialize with. The only thing he had were his pigeons. And he took great care of them. Even if they were injured, he would bring them back to his hotel and figure out intricate contraptions that would lift the weight off their bodies so they could be healed in a proper manner. And it just went to show that Tesla was so far ahead of his time. His mind was too brilliant for us. And it's really unfortunate that when people don't understand someone, we ridicule them, we cast the first stone, where we should have really been utilizing this man's great brain, the wizard of electricity. He may have been an oddball, he may have been a bit different, but in my opinion, he's the smartest man in the modern day, and he deserves the respect that he has earned. He doesn't get credit for the telegram and many of his other inventions. I've heard that textbooks are now rewriting it and they're correcting it, but Nikola Tesla's inventions and thinking has been suppressed for a long time because it isn't in line with making money. It can just provide too much for the world. And I just hope that we can leave today not only with the first message, if someone's different or odd, treat them with love and respect. And number two, Tesla is better than Edison.